All right, take two. Actually, not take two, but whatever. So, the last video on integers, we were talking about adding and subtracting. This video, we're going to talk about multiplication and division. Now, multiplication and division are arguably a more complex operation, but in integers and even with fractions, multiplication and division are the easier ones to do. So hooray! This is going to be a little bit easier. So we're going to be doing multiplication and division of integers. This is so easy. It's going to be super easy. Your grandma can do it. In fact, your grandma is probably a bad mother at math because she learned back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, so she just had to pay attention. Multiplication and division of integers. Okay? So, what does multiplication and division of integers look like? Well, it looks like positive 3 times negative 2. Or, we'll do multiplication first. Or, negative 4 times negative 2. Or, positive 2, negative 3 times positive 3, okay? So what is happening in all of these situations? Well, I'll go through the more complex explanation of what's going on, and then we'll jump back to our shortcut, which makes it like, if you know your times tables, super easy, super easy. So again, like with adding and subtracting integers, I can read this like a sentence, okay? And it's a little different how I read it, because now this symbol has some more meaning. So I read it as and I'm going to add or take away, depending on the symbol before me. I add or take away this number, the number, and then the multiplication just tells me groups of, and then the number, and sign. This might seem very, Keska, what? Well, let's just see what it looks like. Let's read this as a sentence, this first one. It's a positive, so I'm going to add. I add 3 groups, okay? So I'm going to add 3 groups. These are groups. I'm adding 3 groups of negative 2. So in each of these groups, I'm going to have negative 2. So that's what I do. Negative 2 in each group. And what does that give me a total of? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative. Negative 6. I add 3 groups of negative 2. Next one. Let's read this one as a sentence. Now I take away. So I take away 4 groups of negative 2. I'm going to take away. So I'm actually going to do, let's do it. I jumped complexity pretty quick here, but I think you guys can handle it. Let's do it. So I take away 4 groups of negative 2. Now I have nothing to take away from. So yeah, you guessed it. I'm going to have to use 0 pairs to take away from. Now it wants me to take away 4 groups of negative 2. 4 groups of negative 2. Well, what are 4 groups of 2? It's 8. So I am going to probably need 8 0 pairs. So let's draw 8 zero pairs, because I need something to take away from. I have nothing to take away from right now. So I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to draw my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I know this seems complicated, and I'm just showing you how we can jump to here. I'm showing you what it looks like, and then we'll use the shortcut and we'll be cruising, okay? Now I'm going to take away 4 groups of -2. 4 groups of -2. Okay, so I need 4 groups of -2. Here's one group of -2. Here's a second group of -2. Here's a third group of -2. And here's a fourth group of -2. And I'm going to take away each of them. I'm taking away 4 groups of -2. And what am I left with? You guessed it, +8. Okay? And finally down here, again, I am taking away 3 groups of +3. And again, anytime I'm taking away, anytime I hit here and it's negative, I'm taking away, that's telling me that I'm going to have to use 0 pair groups. So I am taking away 3 groups of +3. 3 groups of 3 is 9, so that's a hint that I'm going to need 9 0 pairs. Seven, 8, 9. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm doing what I'm told. And it wants me to take away 3 groups of +3. Okay, well, let's take away 3 groups of +3. There's one group of +3, a second group of +3, and a third group of +3. Goodbye, 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 leaving me with -9. Okay? Now, what is the trick? What is the juice? What's the juice, Mr. Nelson? Give me the juice. Just give me the juice. I'm going to give you the moves here. Here are the moves. I come back here. I'm going to use, this is my key. And I'm going to look now. I'm not going to look at the 2 numbers in the middle anymore because I only have one sign, because this is going to be multiplication. Now what I'm looking at is the sign of each number in the operation, these 2. If these 2 numbers are different, or sorry, these 2 symbols, these 2 signs are different, that tells me my answer is going to be negative. If the 2 symbols are the same, like here and here, they're the same symbol, my answer is going to be positive. And so in this case, I could look at it and be like, okay, 3 times 2 is 6, so I know my answer is going to have a magnitude of 6, and then I look at the symbol, it's different, so it's going to be a -6. That's it. That's multiplication. Easy. Again here, well, I know 4 times 2 is 8, so I know my number is going to be 8, and then I look at my signs, they're the same, they're both negative, so my answer is going to be positive. Here, I look at my sign, I've got a negative and a positive, so I know it's going to be a negative, and then 3 times 3 is 9. Easy, easy. So let's do just a couple more examples to drive it home. So let's say +2 times -3, -5, and -2 times -2, and +3 times -3 times +2. Okay, I I might have even just done this one. I don't know. Okay. So, let's this time start by doing it this way, and then we'll confirm it with our other way. So I look here. 2 times 5. I know 2 times 5, regardless of the sign, is 10. I know 2 times 5 is 10, and I know I've got a positive and a negative, which are different signs, so it's going to be different signs, negative. So this will be negative 10 is my answer. And then I go through it and do it properly. I add 2 groups of negative 5. Okay, well I can do that. I can add 2 groups of negative 5. I'm going to add 2 groups, and I'm going to put negative 5 in each group. I'm adding 2 groups of negative 5, and then I count how many negatives I have, and I have negative 10. There we go. Here, I do the math. 2 times 2 is 4. And then I look at the signs. They're both negative, which means they're the same. 2 negatives means I have an answer of positive 4. And I can go through here. I am taking away 2 groups of negative 2. I have nothing to take away from, so I am going to need some 0 pairs. How many 0 pairs? Well, enough to take away 2 groups of negative 2, which means I'm going to need, 4 0 pairs. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm taking away 2 groups of negative 2. 2 groups of negative 2. 2 groups of negative 2. Perfect. And I take those away, and I am left with 4 positive. Beautiful. And here, I'm going to do the math straightforward first. I take away 3 times 2 is 6, so I know it's going to be 6. And then I have negative and positive, different signs, so it's going to be negative 6. And if I do it the old-fashioned way, I take away 3 groups of positive 2. I'm going to need to take, if I have to take away 3 groups of positive 2, I'm going to need, 6 0 pairs. So here, I'm adding 6 zeros. 1 0, 2 0, 3 0, 4 0, 5 0, 6 0. This is 0. I'm showing you 0 here. And I'm taking away 3 groups of positive 2. 3 groups with 2 positives in each group. I'm taking all of these away. And I'm left with 6 negatives. Okay, that's multiplication. Let's do division. Now division is the one component that kind of breaks down a little bit when I try and do use the visual method, but I'm going to try and stumble my way through it. Before I stumble my way through showing you, I'm just going to show you that division works wonderfully with this secret here, with the secret sauce there too, okay? So say I have positive 18 divided by negative 3, or I have negative 20 divided by positive 5, or negative 24 divided by negative 8, okay? All these cases I approach it just like multiplication. The first thing I do is, well, what is 18 divided by 3? Ignore the symbol or the signs. What's 18 divided by 3? It is 6. Are the signs the same or different? They're different. Different signs means my answer is going to be negative. Just like that. So easy. Negative 20 divided by positive 5. Well, 20 divided by 5 I know is 4. And the signs are different, so it's going to be negative 4. Down here, ignoring the signs, I have negative 24, and I divide by negative 8. So 24 divided by 8 is 3. And the signs on these two numbers are the same, so it's going to be actually positive 3. That's division. That's using the secret. It's easy. And I find all my students have no problems multiplying and dividing integers, but they definitely get confused adding and subtracting. It's funny how that works. I guess the secret sauce is much tastier with multiplication and division. Now let's see if we can do this now using our little token. So I'm just going to read this again as a sentence. I'm going to have to change my sentence a little bit for division. But here I am taking positive 18 and dividing it into groups of negative 3. I can't do that. I can't take a positive 18 and divide it into groups of negative 3. Here I have negative 20. I have negative 20. And I'm going to split it up into 5 even groups. I'm going to split it up. I'm going to take negative 20. I'm going to split it up into 5 groups, positive 5 groups. So 5 equal groups would be 5 equal groups would be the other way. Five equal groups. And I can find that I have negative 4 in each group. I have positive 18, and I'm going to split it up into groups of negative 3. See, it doesn't just make as logical sense. And when I learned this, that was what I was taught, is that division is just, it kind of breaks down this visualization, okay? But here, let's try this one. I have negative 24, and I'm going to split it into groups of negative 8. So in this case, this one will work. I have negative 24. It's going to be a lot. And I'm going to split it up into groups of negative 8. Splitting it up into groups of negative 8. So here's a group of negative 8, here's a group of negative 8, and here's a group of negative 8. And I'm left with 3 groups. But why try and do this process when it breaks down, when the shortcut is just so sweet? It's the juice, it's the sauce, it's the spice, okay? It's spice. So this has been multiplication and division of integers by Mr. Nelson. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't confuse you.